Let's talk about Napoleon. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit. So Napoleon, I don't know if you know about him. He was known as a short guy, right? To be rather upset and angry and jealous of other people when he was short, and so that's how the story goes. Anyway, I saw this post and I was like, that's pretty badass. Look at this. Napoleon's actual sword that was used in battle more than 200 years ago. It sold for 6.4 million at auction. Look at that. It's actually a pretty sweet looking sword. The handle looks kind of small. How many people think this guy actually used it in battle, though? Like, I mean, when I say used it in battle, like, do you think he killed somebody with it? Or do you think he just had it on his hip when he was like, go that way, send those troops in, Commodore, go do the thing, you know, with the ships and stuff. Who knows, right? I don't know. But then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I keep hearing about Napoleon. How tall was Napoleon? Like, let's really get into it. And I found this article. Was Napoleon Bonaparte really short? What do you think? And I know I saw Mark Robershaw over there. He got a super chat about it, and he basically knows already. It was propaganda. Turns out he really wasn't. He's chiefly remembered for two things in the English-speaking world: for being a conqueror of no small ability and being short. He still inspires devotion and hatred for winning a series of titanic battles, expanding an empire across much of Europe, then destroying it all as a result of a failed invasion of Russia. A magnificent disruptor, he continued the reforms of the French Revolution, arguably not in the spirit of revolution, and established a model of government that remains in some countries to this day. But for better or worse, the most famous thing most people believe about him is that he was short. But was he really short? Turns out he wasn't particularly short at all. Napoleon is sometimes described as being 5 foot 2 inches tall, which would definitely make him short for his era. However, there's a strong argument that this figure is wrong and that Napoleon was actually about 5 foot 6 inches, no shorter than the average Frenchman. And I actually read in another article I was reading that it was 5 foot 7. So 5 foot 6, 5 foot 7, you know. They say anyone who says they're 6 foot is actually like 5 foot 11 and like a half or something. So who knows if he was actually 5 foot 6 or 5 foot 5 and a half or 5 foot 6 and a half. Who knows? Napoleon's height has been the subject of many psychological profiles. He's sometimes cited as the chief example of short man syndrome, also known as Napoleon complex, whereby short men act more aggressively than their larger counterparts to make up for their lack of height. Certainly, there are few people more aggressive than a man who defeated his rivals at time after time across almost an entire continent and only stopped when dragged to a very small, faraway island. But if Napoleon was of average height, the easy psychology doesn't work for him. Where is this such a discrepancy in historic descriptions of Napoleon's height? As he was one of the most famous men of his era, it would seem reasonable to assume that his contemporaries knew how tall he was. But the problem may have been due to a difference in measurements between the English and French-speaking worlds. The French inch was actually longer than the British inch, leading to any height sounding shorter than the English-speaking world. In 1802, Napoleon's doctor, Jean-Nicolas Covisart de Meretz, 1755 to 1822, said Napoleon was 5 foot 2 inches by the French measure, which equates to about 5 foot 6 in British measurements. Intriguingly, the same statement, Covisart said that Napoleon was of short stature. So it may be that people already assumed Napoleon was small by 1802, or that people assumed the average Frenchman was much taller. Matters are confused by the autopsy, which was carried out by Napoleon's doctor. He had numerous doctors. Frenchman Francois Carlo Antomarchi, 1780 to 1838, who gave 5 foot 2 as his height. But was the autopsy, which was signed off by a number of British doctors and in a British-owned area, in British or French measures. We don't know for sure, with some people adamant that the height of the British units and others French. When other sources are factored in, including another measurement after the autopsy and British measurements, people generally conclude the height of 5'5" to 7 inches British or 5'2" in French, but there still are some doubt. Now it continues on with some other stuff, but it's interesting. Was he short or was he average? I'm going to go with he was of average height, and that he had a lot of people that hated him. There's still people in France that hate him still. In fact, I believe I read an article recently about how Macron made some like honor to at his grave or something, like his tomb site or whatnot, and some people were outraged that he did this, but it's like celebrating part of French history, and then other people are like, but he was a conqueror and he killed people, so he must be bad. It's kind of how like, we can't celebrate the founding fathers in America anymore because they were racist, or some of them were, or they didn't fight enough, or Abraham Lincoln didn't care a lot about black people. That's what they're saying. So it's very similar to me in in that sense.